That was the very first name Christians named to themselves.
Exactly.
You roll somewhere.
Exactly. So Christ path is, I think, it's a good word because it's not a noun, it's not abstract, it's an invitation to do something, to work, to travel, to journey spiritually. It's a pilgrimage. So I like that word via. I like it because it's like a verb. It's get moving, you know. There's a great eco-philosopher, David Orr, in America today, and he says, hope is a verb with the sleeves rolled up. And I think that's what these vias are. You know, we have to get off our cushions and out of our pews and out of our ivory tower academic prisons and walk a path.
And about walking and action, you say that we need two sources of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
One is mystical experiences in our Western Christian spirituality, and the other one is science.
Mm-hmm.
But also action is maybe the principal objective, no, the principal aim.
Well, yeah, when you line the four paths out, see the first two paths are not action. They are about reception. You receive awe and wonder. And you undergo awe and wonder. You undergo also silence and suffering. It's not an action. They're pre-action. They're more states of being, of undergoing, of receiving, and even of surrender. But beginning with the via creativa, that's when you start taking action. Because with creativity, you make decisions and choices. Every artist has to make a choice. You know, what size is a painting going to be? You know, what materials will it be made of, etc. So creativity requires decision making. And then, as I said, the via transformativa, of course, is taking all the other paths. It's taking your love, the via positiva. It's taking your letting go, your suffering, and it's taking your creativity and putting it into an action, the action of compassion. Compassion is an action. It's not just a feeling. And yeah, so that's how I think that's how it works. And as far as sources of wisdom go, it's a trigger of awe. Now this is where science comes in. I think science's primary job is to tell everybody how awesome beings in the universe are, whether it's atoms or galaxies or the universe itself. These are stories of creation that are so important to hear. Every human tribe has kept itself together by its creation stories. And you never have too many creation stories. But now that science, which is of course global, is coming up with these creation stories, and they're stunning and full of awe and wonder, and they're universally accepted, and no matter what cultures, you can still keep your cultural stories alive, and we must. But this grand story of the universe, it's an opportunity to keep this tribe together that is called the human species. And so we have a common creation story for the first time in the history of the human species.
When you talk about, you quote Rabbi Eshel.
Yes.
Maybe in Italy we don't know very much about him, at least in my culture.
Uh-huh.
You don't mention Plato and Aristotle. For them, awe was the beginning of philosophy.
What? For them,
they
yes,
say
yeah.
meraviglia.
Yeah,
the
right,
awe was
right. And Aquinas too.
Okay.
He says the poet.
But you prefer Rabbi tradition.
Well, because, well, it's not either or at all. You know, again, it's universal. Rabbi Heschel, who fled Germany in the 1930s, he was a friend of Martin Buber, and he came from a whole family of very renowned Hasidic rabbis and so forth. But yeah, he came to America in the 1930s and it's been there since. But a brilliant man and a brilliant soul. He, for example, he walked with Dr. Martin Luther King at Selma and Birmingham, and he received a lot of criticism from Jews in America because they said, you know, we have enough trouble without you marching with King, getting us in more trouble. He just said no. So he wrote a major work on the prophets, a classic work on the prophets, and he didn't stay in the comfort of academia in the ivory tower. He literally walked. His daughter told me the story when he came back from walking with King at Selma. She was 10 years old. She asked him, "What was it like, Daddy?" And he said, "I felt my feet were praying. I felt my feet were praying." So he's a giant theologian and a giant soul. And but yes, it's true that, you know, Aquinas says that the philosopher and the poet begin in the same place with wonder. But remember, in modern era, Descartes says philosophy begins with doubt. It's a totally different starting point.
Right.
When you get into doubt, you end with pessimism. you end with despair. You end with needing a drink. You know, if you read Bertrand Russell or John Calvin, you know, they're so depressed and depressing. Bertrand Russell actually says that henceforth all philosophy must begin with radical despair.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's modern consciousness. And that's what I like about the Einsteinian view. Now, Einstein, you know, he has this amazing passage. He says, we have been given the gift of the intellectual mind and the intuitive mind. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift. The intellectual mind should serve the intuitive mind. But in our society, he says, we have neglected the intuitive mind. So the intellectual mind is just serving itself. And he says, values do not come from the intellect. This is Einstein. He says they come from intuition and feeling. And we don't have that integrated. In other words, he's talking about wisdom. This is the Jewish consciousness. Wisdom includes heart, values, and mind. Whereas knowledge is just raw power from the left brain, if you will. And that's really how education is structured in the West still today. And it's one reason I think that we're destroying the earth. As Thomas Berry, the geologian, says, most of the destruction of the planet is happening at the hands of people with PhDs.
Yeah.
Education can be dangerous because we're not bringing the wisdom.
Why cosmology nowadays is so important to our inner life?
First of all, it always has been. It's only in modern consciousness that we split. My theory is this. In the year 1600, the church burned Giordano Bruno at the stake because he was exploring the new cosmology.
Maybe because it was Dominican?
There are a lot of Dominicans that didn't burn at the stake. But no, it was because of his passion for Copernicus and the new science. And so I believe that at that time, science and religion split. Because after all, we just had the 40-year religious wars in Europe, all these religions killing each other in the name of Jesus and God. So I think the scientists said, hey, these believers are dangerous. Let's work a truce. You people take the soul, and we'll take the universe. I think that's what happened, essentially. And of course, by taking the universe, science discovered the power of the universe, atomic power, etc. But with no conscience, because they had abandoned spirituality. Meanwhile, religion became more and more introverted, more and more individualistic, more and more psychological, and silly. You know, it's notions of sin, masturbation as a sin, and just silly. And so you have this huge pathology in science on the one hand, and in religion on the other. Now, what's exciting about our times, the postmodern times, is that the two are coming together. And I think Einstein himself is explicit about that when he says science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. So, and of course, in our time, many scientists are mystics. I say there are far more scientists who are mystics than bishops.
Yeah.
In pre-modern consciousness, for example, in Thomas Aquinas, who of course spent his entire life with science, the best scientist he could get, Aristotle, and it was so controversial that the moment he died, he was condemned by three different bishops. So, and even in his lifetime, we forget how controversial he was. The King of France at one time had to surround his convent with his army to protect him from fundamentalist Christians who were riled up by their pastor, their priest. Who needs science? We have all the answers, and we have Augustine. So Aquinas was so brave, he was so courageous, and he was so alone. Very sad. That's the last year of his life when he went dumb, literally. He had a nervous breakdown and couldn't talk for a year, and then he died. I think it was his intense loneliness. He'd been fighting such a battle for so long. And so he's just a great figure. But the point is that he says, every human being is capax universi, capable of the universe. So it's in our traditions everywhere. Native American people, indigenous people, pre-modern people always pray in the context of creation. They wouldn't think that prayer is reading from a man-made book. No, prayer is opening your heart up to the heart of the universe. That's why drumming is so important. That's the heartbeat of the universe. And so all human peoples have married psyche and cosmos. That's what real ritual is about. The microcosm of our small communities linking up to the macrocosm of the universe and exchanging the power, bringing that power in. Again, all that sense of cosmology has been lost in modern consciousness by the split of religion and science and the neurosis of religion and science since, because both lose their energy when they're cut off from each other. Our souls are made for the whole. And that's one of the wonders of being human, that we can explore the whole, not just our particular moment in history. That makes us a little crazy as humans, but it also is part of our sense of wonder and our passion, and how it is we took over the planet in 100,000 years and no other species has ever come close to doing that. So we have a power, we have a mind, an intellect, an imagination that is both dangerous and divine in its powers of creativity.